Disturbing trends for 2022.
Segregation. Worst medical procedures. Individual freedom equals selfish. People complying with tyranny. Propaganda and censorship. People trying to get freedom through compliance.
What's going on, America? I am the right-winged angel, Oliver Mack, and joining me today, I have Layla with Propaganda Fluent. How's it going?
Going good.
Awesome. So before we get started, we got a very important topic to cover. We're going to talk about propaganda. Of course, she's a specialist in propaganda, but I wanted her to go ahead and introduce herself to the audience for people who don't know you. Go ahead, Layla.
Yeah, so thanks so much for having me on your show. I love how you run the propaganda. You definitely you get your message across in a very matter of fact, engaging way. No holds bar. I like
Thank
it.
you.
Yeah, so propaganda. I mean, I just got into it. I started my channel after the Brandon administration announced their mandates, and I thought, you know what? Well, they might fire me from my job. I don't know what the extent will be because I work in an industry that is, part of that whole umbrella, a very large company. So I said, at least if I'm going to go down, let me go down with the circle.
Go down fighting, huh?
Yes, with the network speaking out against this. So I thought the most crucial component I can contribute would be to talk about the psychological warfare aspect, the propaganda aspect. It's very subtle. A lot of people know what it is, but they don't really know how it works. It's like seeing a really complex piece of art. Like you can see the final product, but you don't know all the layers and intricate planning and staging and preparation that go into it. So I thought it would be fun to talk about that.
Awesome. And you just created a podcast, right?
Yes, I did. I just started the podcast. I wanted to get into, again, the mechanisms, looking at literature, breaking it down. And I thought that the podcast would be the great way. On my Instagram, I do a lot of commentary, but it's more, fun social media type stuff. But the topic itself can be a little dry and, so I thought the podcast would be the great format. And I think people like it. They definitely appreciate it.
Yeah, I like it. I've listened to your podcast. It's very relaxing. So you're getting a lot of information, a lot of cool information, but your voice is very relaxing. It's like ASMR for
nice.
Conservatives. Yeah. If you know what that is.
Yes, I definitely know. Yeah. I mean, whatever the best method of delivery is, it's good information.
Yeah. It's kind of like hypnosis. So you're going to get it. Like you're definitely going to get it into your brain when you listen to her speak. So it's really cool. All right. So let's get into some topics. We're on the propaganda front. One thing that kind of segues into talking about propaganda, because when we were talking earlier, we were talking about school kids and how teachers are pushing propaganda to kids when it comes to LGBT, when it comes to critical race theory and different things like that. So yeah. I know the new governor of Virginia, shout out to him, kudos to him, because he actually developed a line, a hotline where you can actually, parents can report propaganda being taught in schools. And wow. I think it's great because there's a lot of things that are going on and parents don't think they have a voice. They'll go to the the meetings, the school board meetings, and they'll talk about it, and nothing really gets done. But when you have a direct line to your state officials to be able to report these things, I think it's great. So kudos to him. But I know, that's just Virginia. So we have this stuff going on all throughout the country where they're pushing these theories and ideologies on our kids. And, I know the reason why they're doing it. I think every generation, and I'll let you speak in just a second. I want to talk about this because I think every generation believes they know more than their parents, right?
Yeah.
And I think as we get older, we see generations that are thinking that they know more and more than their parents. And I think with this new generation coming up, it's basically going to be, well, I know everything, mom and dad, and you know nothing because my teachers told me that everything you said is wrong, right? So they're able to push this propaganda, and it's unimpeded because kids are continuing to think that they know more than their parents. So what do you think about what's going on in schools and the propaganda that's being pushed?
Well, I think that the schools definitely, that is in the anarchist handbook. They talk about how the education system, that's ground zero for indoctrination. I mean, if you look at it from every level, we know about, okay, the Rockefellers developed the school system to make factory workers, that whole theory. And then you look at how the schools are running with the sleep deprivation, a young child getting up, going to school early in the morning, not getting enough rest. They're more susceptible to indoctrination. I mean, at every level, you have the social pressure. There's no way to have any sort of morality in a sense of religion. You can't really express yourself that way. Before we would even salute the flag, I don't even know if they do that. So at every level, the children from the very beginning are being trained to accept authority because you don't want to get in trouble. You don't want to go to detention. You're sleep deprived. All of these things are happening. So it's a perfect system to create whatever type of child you want. And unfortunately, right now, it's being used to, number one, hate America, hate your race, whatever it is, loathe yourself at some level and find yourself as a victim. And to get you ready to support the Socialist Democrat Party. So, I mean, if you look at the school board, like you said, they complain and nothing happens because the Democratic Party and the school boards are they're 100% tied together financially in so many ways. So it's not really fair in a lot of ways for parents and children.
No, it's not fair. And I know there's a big push right now, a big movement to get kids out of these schools, at least out of public schools. And, I know there's a lot of alternatives out there, but not a lot of parents know about them. And frankly, some of them could be hard to afford. I know it's hard to homeschool your kid, or it's pretty expensive to hire a teacher to teach your kid. So a lot of these things may not be accessible to some people, and I understand that. And I wish there were programs out there being run by patriots who believe that, the best thing that we can do is train our kids ourselves, teach our kids ourselves, because no one's going to instill our values into our kids anymore. These schools have just decided that, like you said, they hate America. They want everybody to vote Democrat. They believe that the LGBTQ is the right way to go. Like they're trying to push kids toward that. So in order for us to fight against that, it's going to take training our kids, teaching our kids ourselves. But, not everybody has access to that. So hopefully some patriots will step up and try to create a new thing where, we have affordable options in terms of homeschooling and hiring teachers to teach your kids. But that is what it is. Hopefully it'll come, but if it doesn't, then we'll figure something else out. But so I wanted to ask you a question. Have you always been on the right, or were you on the left at some point?
So I I've always lived in blue states. So I didn't really have much exposure to the Republican Party. My earliest exposure was George Bush, and I didn't like him very much. Later on, I grew to start to understand the role he was playing. And then I was like, oh, okay, I get what he's doing. Obviously, he's not stupid. But, all my life, I'm mixed race. So all my life, it's been, these people are evil, they're racist, that's it, But living in liberal states, I was really, really well exposed to the hypocrisy and the racism of the liberal, and it's not fun at all. So to me, I took the approach around the time COVID happened, because also in California, you can't openly discuss your conservative views, whatever they may be.
Yeah, because the
with,
liberal mob will attack you, right?
oh, definitely. People
Yeah.
at work will shun you instantly. They're just trained. It's automatic.
Mhm.
And when the time COVID hit, you know, I was looking and seeing how the president was responding at the time, and I just liked his language. He seemed level-headed. I was like, okay, I'm going to go with that group. I don't care about whatever gradation. We have a common goal. We're going to stick together to achieve that common goal, which is what Americans do best. Is we are from so many diverse backgrounds, but we can work together to achieve a common goal. So I started getting into Candace Owens. I started getting into all of the different, you know, conservative people, especially Ben Shapiro. For some reason, I thought he's just, I like, he's funny to me, his books. He's obviously really well written. And then I happened to join Blexit, went to Washington, D.C., and was definitely, that was the turning point for me, just to be in that environment and actually see other conservatives that were not, you know, named Jimbo or whatever, that traditional, you know, that traditional image that I always got. It's like conservative, like Republicans are always named Billy Bob or something, and that's it, you know? And it's definitely grown so much, like your platform, you know, there's so many platforms that are looking to give that conservative perspective, not, you know, from what's the traditional route. But I mean, every group, every nationality has a conservative aspects to it. Like people were actually telling me, oh, this makes sense for you because you've always had these ideas and you have these thoughts. And I was like, me? I never would have imagined. So it's there. It's just now we have a language. So, you know, platforms like yourself, it's good that you're giving people a language and talking points and helping to educate them.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. For me, it's more about building a community than anything, having a avenue that people can go to feel like they're not alone, you know, because that's a big thing with being a conservative, because a lot of times your family, your friends, they kind of shun you. They don't want to have anything to do with you. So you feel alone, and being able to go to different platforms and being able to connect with people of like mind to make you feel like, well, I mean, they said I'm crazy, but these people say I'm not. These people understand me. So I'm going to stay over here with them. But so going back to propaganda, so you didn't vote for Trump in 2016, right?
I didn't vote.
Okay, you didn't.
So I was not really.
I didn't vote either, so I don't feel bad.
Yeah, I was not really in the political.
Yeah.
I always knew about election fraud, so I just let it go.
Right.
I was like participating.
So what I wanted to say about that, you know, just to confirm that you didn't vote for him in 2016. So do you go back and look at all the propaganda that was pushed about President Trump before you started supporting him?
I looked back, and that's what even consolidated it even more, was just how shocking, because the things he was saying were actually legitimate. It's just that people said they didn't like his delivery. It's like, okay. And then, you know, he does say some off the radar things, but he's also an entertainer. He knows how to get people's attention. I mean, the American public and the world in general, you're talking about people who just sit and watch Marvel movies all day. There's no analytical, deep thought. They're just trying to get a soundbite out and stay popular. Not that Marvel movies are bad, but you know what I mean? Just very simple plots sometimes.
Yeah.
And yeah, just seeing the things that he was saying, and what really tipped me over, like I definitely am going to be a Donald Trump fan for life, because he actually went to the UN and said America was never going to be a socialist country. Like the amount of they say he's arrogant, they say he's a psychopath, whatever. You have to be on that same spectrum of like, I'm going to do what I want, to be able to stand up to the world and say, we're not going to follow along. We're not going to turn into Canada. We're not going to turn into Australia. Right. We're not going to just become, you know, how do I say it without saying it in a lewd way, but we're not going to just be taken over.
Yeah. Pushed around, you know?
Yeah, pushed around. Exactly.
Yep. Yep, I completely understand that. It's crazy. Like, when did having confidence become a bad thing? Because I think that was one of the best things about Donald Trump is the amount of confidence that he had.
Mm-hmm.
When he would step foot on the world stage, other countries would have to kind of step back and say, "Whoa, that's not somebody that we can mess around with. That's not somebody who's going to take anything lying down. That's somebody who we're going to have to come correct with." And as a country, like, you want to appear strong, and that's
Mm-hmm.
what Donald Trump did. Like, he made our country appear like the strongest country in the world, which we are. So that's something that our leader should be exuding: confidence, strength, all that. And also diplomacy. He had that. So Donald
Yeah.
Trump was someone
He's
who, yeah, he could be arrogant, he could be cocky at times, but when it was time to sit down with the world leader, like, he knew exactly how to talk to people, who knew exactly what to say. He was
mm-hmm.
able to build a relationship with a dictator like King Kim Jong
That's
Un.
amazing. And
Yeah,
peace in the Middle East. Like,
right.
what do you like? That's phenomenal. That's like
Yeah,
amazing.
right. And it's just so crazy that the left and the mainstream media just made it a point to bash everything he did, and the way
Mm-hmm.
that they were able to get people to just side with them no matter what. Like, even when it didn't make any sense. Like, it's like, if this was anybody else that said this, you wouldn't have a problem with it. But the media and their propaganda has made you believe that this thing that you wouldn't have a problem with somebody else saying is now a problem. And it has, and I think they did this on purpose, and this is why everything all started when it comes to, like, just the left going overboard, because I feel like they had to make everything offensive just so when Donald Trump said it, it would be offensive, right? So they had to destroy comedy. They had to destroy entertainment by making everything offensive, just
Mm-hmm.
so regular people, when they heard Donald Trump say the same things that people have been saying for decades before, now all of a sudden it's offensive. And they couldn't just say, "Oh, well, I know this person said it and it was okay, but Donald Trump said now we have a problem." No, they had to destroy the people who said the same things that Donald Trump said. So now we have this cancel culture that has been created, and I believe it was created purposely to try to take down Donald Trump. What do you think about that?
No, I definitely agree. The populist movement is what these globalists are fighting against. And he
Mm-hmm.
was definitely the president of the populist movement globally in so many
Mm-hmm.
ways, like showing that we have the president of Brazil, who's also, he seems to be a populist
Yeah.
president. But yeah, that's what it was. They had to take him out. The concept that people are free, we're not just some like people who are indebted to some bureaucrats or the elites. They actually
Mm-hmm.
call themselves the elites,
Mm-hmm.
somewhere in Davos, drinking their champagne and, living the lavish life. Um, to imagine that the average person is, suited to be sovereign and suited to make his own decisions was something they had to attack with full force. They had to
Mm-hmm.
even, roll out the 2020 situation. So
Yeah.
it was not a joke. It was not a joke.
Right. So what do you think is their end game? What do you think they're planning to accomplish, um, maybe 10 or 20 years from now? What do they want from us?
They want to completely demoralize us. They
Mm-hmm.
want to have everything centralized and into, the bureaucrats, healthcare, all forms of industry, trade, everything globalized to everything centralized to the globalist control. They want us to apparently own nothing and have no privacy. That was
Mm-hmm.
proposed in the Great Reset, whole agenda.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, they just want us to go into a more complete and total form of slavery, which we see on the world stage in China with the social credit system. So that's what they're looking to do. There's
Wow.
no, and ultimately also reduce the population because there's too many of us. There's too many useless eaters, apparently. That's what they think. So.
That's something that I kind of talked about on other platforms. Like a lot of this is based on population control. I feel like on the Republican side, like their way of trying to boost the economy is to create more jobs, create more opportunities. When I think Democrats, they're trying to create more growth by less people. And I think that's why they advocate for abortions. That's something I never really understood, how anybody could advocate and fight for abortions. Like,
I can't.
Like how could you see this as a good thing? Like, even if you felt like an abortion was needed in the, I don't know, most extreme circumstances, the fact that these people are actually coming out and praising and saying, I got an abortion, yay me. Like, I just don't understand it. But once again, we got the propaganda. The propaganda is to tell women that, hey, somebody is trying to control what you do with your body. You don't want anybody to control your body. You don't want some man telling you what to do with your body. That's not a life inside of you. That's just a lump of cells. Like, all this propaganda surrounding the whole abortion thing is just crazy. And I don't know why people, well, I guess I know why, because people want to be able to, I guess, do what they want to do. So a baby is going to prevent them from doing that. So they feel like, well, any way that I can continue to live the lifestyle that I want to live, I'm going to do that. But yeah, anyway, I was getting a little bit off topic because that kind of bothers me when people do that.
It does.
But yeah, their end game, I believe, is population control. Like I said, we got an abortion that we're talking about. But the thing about it is, when we talk about population control and they're trying to open the borders to get more people in here, I don't know, maybe they're trying to do that because they know it will destroy the country. And
replacement migration.
What's that?
It's called replacement migration.
Okay.
That's
so
what
get into that a little bit.
Yeah. So Soros actually talks about it on his website. It's replacement migration, and the UN's Bill of Rights or Human Rights Charter, which we don't fall under, because guess what? The Constitution rules the land. We don't care what you wrote about in Davos or Brussels or whatever. But for them, refugees can enter your country. That's a human right to seek refuge wherever it is. And that's what they implemented in Europe. That's why they're, replacing the populations of all those, Finland, Germany, all these different places, France, they're replacing. And then when they can do that, then guess what? There's no national identity. Then you're a global citizen, right?
Right.
There you go. And what is a nation going to do with a bunch of people who are refugees? Refugees are statistically going to have higher rates of mental illness. They have trauma. They have all sorts of things. Fleeing a country that's collapsing or not stable is going to cause problems for you mentally. And obviously, these countries don't have facilities to handle that. We don't have that structure in place. So it's really sad. They tell you outright what they're doing. And if you look in Poland, they have a populist sort of, stance where they are actually getting invaded by refugees that are being flown in they're being flown in from Syria, all over the Middle East. And then this army, their enemy army that's bordering them, is walking the refugees to the gate and cutting the gate open and letting them go through. And I want to do a review on that. It's such a crazy article because The Guardian makes it seem like, oh, they're victims. No human is illegal. And it's like, they're literally being escorted by an enemy army. Like, this is obviously warfare. How can you just pretend? But yeah, I'm going to do a piece on that. It's really interesting how they can like twist it and just make it seem like, oh, Poland is just racist.
Yeah. Yep. But I mean, that's what they're doing here too, because they have American citizens thinking that the thing that we should be doing is just letting people in, whoever wants to come in from other countries. And the thing that bothers me so much about that is Black people have bought into this.
Yeah.
And
So
this
sad.
affects Black people the most. I mean, there are neighborhoods throughout the country, or they're probably in California, probably some in Texas too, where Hispanic immigrants have come in, or a lot of them illegal have come in, and basically taken over once Black neighborhoods and turned them into Hispanic neighborhoods. So they force the Black people out. I remember watching this video where this Black lady, she went to a Taco Bell or something, and the person who was taking the order couldn't even take her order because she didn't speak English.
Wow.
So why is this happening in America? You have businesses that are completely run by Hispanics, and you can't even go to those businesses unless you speak English in America. And Black people have bought into this propaganda, acting like we're supposed to be a country who just allows anybody who wants to come in, even though it hurts us the most. It's crazy, right?
Oh, it's beyond, and even beyond that, a lot of that violence that we hear about in Chicago over the last, couple of years, that's not all Black people. That's also the Mexican
Spanish
cartels.
gangs.
Yeah. So there's real impact in having people who don't care about you and your country running through your neighborhood. So.
Yep. It's absolutely terrifying. I don't know what's going to happen in the future, but unless we get a handle on these elections, unless we get a handle on reaching the people, it's just going to continue. Do you see any hope for the future of our country?
I do. I think that I was actually having a conversation with someone from Canada, and she was telling me about how she's scared about the convoy a little bit, because then the government's going to implement this new measure, yada, yada. She just lost her job and she's still scared. I'm like, look, let them bring their worst to you, because that's the actual point when people will take action. Like, you've already lost your job. You can't go into a Costco and just go get some food. Like, how much worse is it going to get? Why are you still scared? And that's the mentality people have. So I think that facing our fears and just being like, okay, this is the end, we have to do or die sort of situation. I think that's going to mobilize people. I mean, it mobilized me. So I think that's, Americans, we really respond well under pressure historically. So I think that if we are strategic, if we get out of our emotions, if we learn to embrace and use language properly, we can turn this around, because there's so many people who are tired. They're tired of the BS. And it's just because they have they don't know about your platform. They don't know there's all these different variations of how you can have conservative thought and want to have self-respect and, all of these different things that make an American. But as we have those things expanding, they're gonna start moving over, even if they have to do it quietly. I mean, look at Bill Maher. Yeah. I mean, he was talking about how it's
he's turning around.
Yeah. And he's
he probably still has TDS though, unfortunately. And I think that's a problem when it comes to a lot of these liberals that are kind of seeing the light. They still hate Trump, right? So that's why I'm like, oh man, like I really would want Trump to have a second term, but it's like all these people, they still hate him. Like, no matter if they see the light or not, they can see everything that we as conservatives have been talking about for the past few years. And then you put Trump in front of them and they're like, oh no, I can't stand that guy. They'll say, oh, Biden was horrible. He did all these things, these mandates. The what do you call it? The inflation rate, like the gas prices, all that. They'll say all those things were horrible, but I can't stand Trump. So
he's mean. It's like, okay, I don't care. I'm not here for him to be nice to me. Like, I'm not contributing enough for him to be nice to me.
And that's what we really need to get people to see. Like, it's not about the personality. But here's the thing. We got all these, I'll say Black people in particular, that'll listen to rap music, right? The most vile, the most vulgar, rap
Yes.
music, disrespecting women, talking about
Oh,
killing each
yeah.
other, talking about selling drugs. They'll listen to that and they'll bump it in the car like, oh yeah, that's that. But as soon as Donald Trump says anything, they're like, oh, I'm, I'm clutching my pearls. I'm so offended. Like it's
I
so
know.
crazy to me,
I
you know.
know.
But they bought into it. They bought
Mhm.
into all this stuff that the media has been saying. It's just so easy to control people. It's easy to just get
It
into
is.
people's minds and just manipulate them because, a lot of black people, they believe that all white people are racist. Like that's just how they think, right? All white people are racist. So if the media comes out and says, hey, this white man was racist, a lot of black people will say, I knew it because I already think all of them are. So why wouldn't he be racist? Um, but if it's somebody that the Democrats approve of, then all of a sudden, oh yeah, he's not racist. He's not bad. But it's just crazy to see how easy people are manipulated. Have you noticed that in your journey through life, how easy people are manipulated and how, it's just all you have to give them is a narrative and they'll just believe it.
Oh yeah, definitely. Because if you haven't noticed, I mean, this is the thing that frustrates me about parents and keeping their kids in school. Most kids and most people have not learned to have critical thinking
Mm-hmm.
in any way or form. They don't have a framework of saying, how do I actually analyze information and see if it's
Mm-hmm.
correct? All they do is take the talking point, internalize it instantly if that's the team that they're on.
Yeah.
And then suddenly, if you say something contradictory, you're not only insulting or you're not only bad for siding with the bad team, you're
Mm-hmm.
also personally attacking this person because that view they heard on Don Lemon is now that's part of their soul. And it's like,
Right.
what? That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
You just heard something.
Right. So since you're biracial, right?
Yeah.
So do you have like opposing political views on both sides of your family, or how does that dynamic for you?
I think that well, my dad is Northern African.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that for him, he's a foreigner. So it's more just like, I'm here to like make money, do my thing, the
He
common
doesn't
thing
care
for.
anything about that.
Yeah, they don't care. They're like, these people are bad, these people are bad, everybody's
Yeah.
bad, like
Yeah.
everybody's getting in their way. And then on the other side, it's like, yeah, it's definitely very Democrat, very like, we're gonna go get the booster before they even ask us to go do it, that sort of thing.
Wow.
So yeah, when it came out that I was like not in that party any longer, there
Mm-hmm.
were some family members who were like, well, you've always been that way, so it's not really a shock. and
So why
and
do
then
they think
others
that
tried to
though?
just because I've always had views of what I think the core, conservative philosophy and the core American philosophy is
Mm-hmm.
self-ownership. You have a certain level of responsibility, like you don't blame other people, you take it upon yourself. That whole idea of sovereignty, like we're a sovereign nation and we have a
Mm-hmm.
group of people who are sovereign. That word that has so much propaganda behind the word sovereign, so
Yeah.
much. It's been demoralized completely. It's been made into a joke, but it is very serious because if you're sovereign, there's nobody who can just say, oh, you do this. I don't care who the CDC is. Like, who is that person? Well, they're going to come and tell me, that's the mentality that a
Yeah.
sovereign person would have. You're not a serf. You're
Right.
not, you're not listening to some king or queen or elite somewhere. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that was just my whole thing. I was very much about getting money, no blaming anybody about, oh, I'm downtrodden for this or that reason.
Mm-hmm.
And just about being successful and surviving. I think those are all conservative values at this point,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
I mean,
Now,
they
now
should
don't
be,
you, right. Now don't you think those values can help people?
they
Like
can.
why are they seen as a bad thing? Why do people chastise us and criticizing us for having those values? Like that seems like a good thing to me, right?
Yes, it is. But then if you're responsible for the outcome of your life, then you're the one to blame. And what do people need to do? They need to escape their responsibility. They don't want to feel that regret. They don't want to feel that shame. It's much easier to blame someone. If you can't rise to that level, you're going to try to pull other people down, right? Or you're going to try to make excuses to justify it because they are weak. That is the point. They're weak. It takes a lot of, courage to face, okay, I made a mistake, or I'm doing something wrong, or I've had a totally wrong philosophy this whole time. I thought the bad guys were good and the good guys were bad. That takes a lot of humility. And that's not something that is in the left. That's not something that they have. They're not embracing that American notion that, okay, we're doing something wrong, we want to correct it. And that's something that, even though I don't really think I would be chilling with the founding fathers in any way, we would not be kicking it or having fun. But, they knew what they were doing was wrong. They had the courage enough to say, okay, this isn't really something that we're going to, that we're just going to brush off and ignore,
slavery.
Yeah, the slavery. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people, they kind of look at that through the lens of the technology that we have today.
Yeah.
And they have to understand that, if you look at in reality, the United States of America as a country only had slavery for 89 years. Once the Declaration of Independence was written and we became a country, slavery ended after 89 years. So that's pretty good, in my opinion. Because when you're looking at these people didn't have ways to get around the entire country. These people didn't have ways to deliver messages quickly throughout the entire country. And then we fought a war to end slavery. So, a lot of things happened to advance us as a country and to end slavery within a short period of time. And I think if people would look at that situation through the eyes of the 1800s, then maybe they would understand why we did the things we did. But instead, they want to play victim and try to pretend like the United States is this horrible nation that loved having slavery. Well, if we loved having slavery, we'd still have slavery. We would have never went to war to end it. Like dummies. Like, what is wrong with you guys?
It cost a lot of money to end slavery, not only here, but globally. It costs a lot of money.
Right. And you gotta think about like these people, the slave owners, they paid for their slaves. Like they were actually their property. I know it sucks to even think like that or even say it, but yeah, the slaves were things or people that the slave owners paid for, and they had to be, I guess, compensated some kind of way because what they were doing was not illegal. Like it was legal to own slaves back then. So if you're doing something legal and then someone's tell you, no, you can't have that anymore. We're going to set that person you paid for, we're going to set them free. So you won't have that property anymore. So in the slave owners are like, well, what are you going to do for me? Like I invested in this. So what are you going to do? So there's a lot that had to go into it that people just don't understand, but they don't want to understand it because they'd rather play victim and rather use that to call United States a racist nation when we did everything to not be racist.
Meanwhile, they don't talk about how in Africa today, they have plenty of slavery. So Dubai, Middle East, China,
Libya,
everywhere. Yeah, it's like literally, if you're so worried, where's the vans pulling up? Where the gunships pulling up to free the Black slaves in Africa? Yep. There's a coastline. Oh, but there's no funding for that.
Because we're supposed to be one people, right? So Black people in America think they're the same as Black people in Africa, but there are Black people in Africa that are still enslaved, but Black people in America, like, oh, I don't see anything. What are you talking about?
Child mines. They have children mining. Like, what are you talking about? Like, this is happening today. And then you're like shocked that back in the day when they didn't even have cell phones or any sort of pictures that slavery was able to, somewhat take over most of the nation, and you're shocked about that. But and those people were immoral, but we're moral because we see it every day. We can look it up on TV and see exactly what's happening. But
but I say people are lazy.
Yeah,
that's a big problem for Americans today. Most people are lazy. Most people would rather just turn on the TV and just have the TV just download information into their brains instead of actually turning off the TV and doing a Google search or a DuckDuckGo search or something like that, or even a YouTube search to try to look for alternative means of getting information, because you can have one source that gives you certain facts, I can even look at liberal sources of news to say, okay, well, I know they're not going to tell me the whole truth, but there's some things that they can't lie about. So I'm going to take these bits of information, like how old the person was, like what happened, without the opinion. And then I'll go look at some other sources and kind of combine them all together and say, okay, what really happened? And most people, they don't want to do that. They'd rather assume that their favorite mainstream media source is going to give them all the information they need, and that's it, because they're too lazy to even question what they're hearing or what they're seeing. And a lot of people, they have their favorite go-to celebrities or people like that, and they just get their information from them. They just want a one-stop shop. Yeah, I love LeBron as a basketball player, and I don't feel like looking up all this stuff that's going on with black people and the police. So I'm going to just believe everything LeBron says about it. What do you think about people and their obsession with celebrities and getting their information from celebrities?
Well, I mean, when you're looking at the whole aspect of how a society collapses, there's that phase where people don't have like a morality, they don't have a community, like you were mentioning. And there was actually a talk in 2016 by this guy, he does branding, and he was talking at Google, like a Google conference. And it was saying what's happening is because we don't have churches, we don't have communities, we don't have neighbors, we don't have any of these traditional institutions, we barely have marriage. So people are now going to latch on to brands. That's going to be they don't have religion. So that's going to be my religion. That's going to be my leader. That's going to be my community, is this brand, whoever the celebrity is associated with, whatever their opinions are. And then again, because they don't have an actual framework or are even aware of what analysis, like critical thinking is, they just consume, sit back, they have their consciences at ease because, okay, Candace, someone said this is her opinion, so I can just take it and drop it, and I've done my work.
Because we do have that on the conservative side. When you look at it, there are conservative influencers. Not Candace. I'm not talking about Candace, but there's some other conservative influencers that don't always give correct information, but they kind of sensationalize a lot of things, and they lead some people astray. Just like the left. And I would hope that we would do a better job of fact checking and not just saying, well, this sounds good, so I'm gonna just go ahead and go with it, and I'm gonna lead people down a dark path and have them doing things that they know is not right, but they're gonna do them just because I said them. When you're talking about the whole religion thing, that works both ways. It works on the left and it works on the right. Some people have made the conservative movement their new religion, something that they are tied to and something that they follow very faithfully. Some people have latched on to Trump and made him their savior. Some people have latched on to Fauci and made him their savior, right? So Fauci has become this deity in society where people are propping him up and saying everything that he says is right, which we know that's not true. But that's just what people want to believe. And I think a lot of people just believe what they want to believe. They believe what sounds right. They don't believe what sounds right. They believe whatever kind of fits what they already believe. Like everybody has their their confirmation bias that they use. And I think that affects a lot of us, you know, and I have to stop myself a lot of times from using that confirmation bias myself. So that's why I will usually go to like centrist sources to get some information and to get an opinion and see if it aligns with mine. And then I'll go to right-wing sources and then see, you know, where they fall. But you really, really have to get your information from many different sources just to see, you know, what's right, because one person is not going to give you correct information all the time. So you really have to fact check even your favorite influencers. I would advise everyone to fact check me. Now, if you're going to fact check me, make sure you come with the right information, because if you fact check me and you're wrong, I'm calling you out. I will call you out.
It's over.
You will become the topic of discussion for my story all day long. But anyway, so just to get off of that, so yeah, we're going to go ahead and close it out. I really, really appreciate you coming on. This was a great conversation. Can you give us some last words and tell people where they can find you?
Yeah, so I hope everybody in the freedom movement, whatever label you want to label yourself as, I hope you take a time to step back and learn the foundation of what will keep our world and ultimately this nation free, is to be able to critically think, be a sovereign person, be a person who's not just going to be easily manipulated because they can switch it in a couple of years. It might be the conservatives who are the progressives, or, you know, whatever it is, they're the ones implementing the policies that are bad, you know, but if we understand the principles, we understand how to analyze things properly, we have that critical thinking built into us, we're not going to be susceptible to it. And that's how we can actually achieve our end goal. It's not just picking a side and feeling like, okay, I can take a break. So that's my message. And that's what I'm trying to do with getting my content out there and teaching people what propaganda is, what it looks like. Because when you look at propaganda and you can see this sensational news clip of them doing this to the kids, making them wear masks 18 hours a day or whatever, you know, crazy news clip, then you understand the propaganda. Then you start to also understand how perception is formed, how the mind thinks, how people are analyzing information, how they're able to so covertly force people into drawing a particular conclusion and going with a certain action that isn't even going to necessarily be beneficial for them, like closing your business because, oh, there's a pandemic and we need to close our business and never talk to our grandmothers again, and, you know, just isolate. All of those things were negative ultimately for us on whatever side you were on. These people are suffering from severe mental, you know, duress from all of this. So that's what the propaganda can do. It can manipulate your logic. And so if you understand when it's happening, you can understand what logic is. And it's sort of this cascade of them suddenly being aware of who they are and how they're actually thinking, which is what we need to do, and make sure that thought is correct.
Yep, absolutely. So where can they find you?
Oh, yeah. You can find me on Instagram at propaganda fluent, like I'm fluent in propaganda, that sort of thing. So propaganda fluent. I put my TikTok up, and I have my podcast, Propaganda Fluent. You can find it on iTunes. You can find it on Podbean, all over. I've got on Spotify and everything. So yeah, definitely check me out and subscribe, because it's going to be a fun community. There's a lot of people who have a lot of different backgrounds who have a lot to say, because it's just too much. The propaganda is like too over the top for anybody to ignore at this point.
Yep, it sure is. It sure is. But I'm thankful we have your platform to kind of dissect everything and to help people to understand what's going on. Hopefully more people will start to wake up and realize that the propaganda is real, and people are really being influenced and swayed down a very, very dark path by the propaganda. And we need to get people to wake up before it's too late. All right. Well, thank you all for joining us today. I really, really appreciate it. Please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with your family and friends, because they really need to know what's going on, especially with all this propaganda. But anyway, I'll catch you on the next video. Peace.